Tapestry, a global house of brands.
That's
I
right.
mean, you have Coach, Kate Spade, New York, Stuart Weitzman. I mean, you have it all. And that's obviously a lot of data, as we've been talking about. Now, when we spoke, you talked to me about how when you first got to the company, about 2021, everything was kind of tied up in a nice little bow for you. You were in a good position, not too well. But one thing you said is that you said, now you get to do the fun stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I meant by that was a lot of the foundational things were already in place. We have a pretty advanced tech stack. Thank God I didn't have to put in SAP S/4HANA, Snowflake, all those foundational systems that exist today. But now what we're doing is the fun stuff, right? We're data rich. We're a retailer. We have 1,500 retail locations across 70 plus countries, and so that direct relationship with the customer, with the consumer, gives us a lot of great data. And with that stack, we can use it. It's organized, and we get great insights into our consumers.
Oh, now you, a 30-year veteran in finance, you've
right.
seen the technology advances as they've gone through. How have you had to reinvent yourself, your departments throughout the years?
Yeah, it's funny. Some of I guess the foundational or the principles don't really change, but boy, the application has over time. And as we've seen, so many technological requests that have come through, the principles that I think are still universal is what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? Can you say it with clarity? Somebody said earlier, can you explain it to your grandma?
Yeah.
And I guess that I kind of think of it that way, right? Because if you get into it's too complex and you don't understand, well, maybe we need to take another look at it. So I always look for, is the outcome clear? And really importantly, is there a sponsor who really believes in it? Another issue that I've seen in my personal experience is when things are pushed onto business units and there's not that clear ownership and understanding of what outcome you're trying to drive, generally it's not successful. So what the different application is changes, but when somebody says, I've got this great new technology, I want to put it in, my question is, how does that help the consumer? How does that drive your business? And how are we going to know? What does success look like?
Right, and that kind of leads me to my next question is, how do you get corporate culture to accept this? How do you get everyone on board?
Yeah, really hard. Probably one of the most important things. Again, we're talking about technology today, but it's really people, process, and technology. And so one of the things that we look for, and I look for, is do we have the right sponsors in place? Do we understand exactly how this is going to work in our go-to-market model? And then I think about the technology. So you got to have the sponsorship at the top. You got to have the right skills. And have you thought through what that process looks like and how you're going to implement that through whatever application it is?
Now, the technology, of course, we know, is not cheap.
No.
How do you make it cost effective? Everyone's always talking about ROI. How do you make it cost effective?
That's a good question. You negotiate really well with IBM, for one thing. No, just kidding, IBM. No, I think one of the things that's true today is scale matters. And when we look at some of these investments, they're very expensive. And the way we think about it, at least, is can we make these foundational investments that benefit a group of businesses or brands, and how do you get leverage with that investment that you've made over time? Because I think it's really hard for individual small businesses to keep up, frankly, with the pace of technology and the cost. So we have made the decision. We've made a fairly large acquisition recently, or in the process. And one of the reasons is we believe that the capabilities and the stack that we have will benefit a larger group, and we believe that scale is important.
Now, we talked a lot about managing large amounts of data that generated by AI. Let's talk about the benefits of the technology that help leverage and manage that. What benefits have you seen from what you're using at Tapestry?
Well, the way I think about it, Lisa, is how do we get a better batting average, or how do we, if we can get just a little bit better on the decision making the decisions that we make, then that has a direct benefit in the business. So one of the things we did a joint project with MIT around machine learning and getting better in forecasting, right? And this is a great example of what I was saying, people, process, and technology, because guess what? The technology works better. But we have allocators that have been doing this for a long, long time. Yeah, I know the machine can maybe do it better, but you don't really understand this one aspect. So the tendency to override is tremendous. And so what we've found is it's not only important to find the right technology and application, but also the change management and how do you convince people to use it and benefit your business. So that's one example. We're in the business of creating new products that engage and excite consumers, and we communicate to them what those new products are. The ability to A/B test, to run different code, copy, product ideas, pricing, and read and react, that just helps us make better decisions. So those are some areas where we see tangible benefits.
And how about on the flip side? I mean, there's always a challenge with something. What have you learned?
Well, we make mistakes, right?
Sure,
we have things that for different reasons, but we've invested in technologies that we had what seemed like on paper a great business case, and in reality just didn't deliver. So sure, that's part of the process.
Now, how do you see AI? How is that going to change the trajectory of your business?
Yeah, boy, I wish I really knew the answer to that. We're pretty nascent, if I'll be honest with you. There is a few areas where we are using AI. We're using it for copy, not putting out the final product, but as a thought starter. We still have a human that takes a look at it. Okay. We haven't fully trusted it yet. We're using it in store. There's a really cool pilot that we're doing right now around customer service and asking questions about product and availability. That's another area where we're using it. And like I said, in the supply chain and forecasting area, we've got some projects there.
Wow. Now, you talked about the fun stuff earlier that you're getting to do. How else are you kind of refining the technology at Tapestry?
Well, it's a never-ending process. And again, we have centers of excellence where we're trying to continue to develop the technology in the data labs. We have, what we call the data labs. We're looking at the analytical side of it. And again, it's trying to solve real business problems, right? So we're constantly looking to improve our stack and our insights into the business. I would also say that on the reverse, the watch out sometimes is we can be a hammer looking for a nail. And people fall in love with technology and are trying to sell it into the organization. And that's where I really come back to that earlier comment around what's the outcome we're trying to drive? Mm-hmm. What's the business case around that? And does it make sense? And do you have the sponsor?
And that's very important.
Yeah, right.
Now, how do you see technology changing the way we work, kind of looking ahead? Because that's obviously where it's headed. It's going to change how we work.
Well, I think in some of the areas we just talked about, if somebody was talking about financial transformation, I was thinking, wow, financial analysts, a lot of the things that we do today, I mean, a lot of that can be automated. I think that's really exciting. Pushing down data and understanding of the business closer to those making the decisions, I think that's the future. And we're trying to find ways to do that. I mentioned the one in store with customer service. I think also online with customer service. These are a couple areas where we're really investing right now.
Wow. So what are you excited about? I mean, what keeps you up at night?
Those are two different questions. Well, I'm excited about I mean, listen, we're in a cool industry, right? In the fashion business, and it's moving really quick. We got a great, exciting acquisition that we're just waiting to get our hands on with the Capri business with Versace, Jimmy Choo, and Michael Kors. And so I'm excited about the future of the fashion industry. I think we're leading in ESG. I think we've got a platform that engages and excites consumers, and we got a great platform of brands. So I look at also that combination of our retail. We're big retailers. We're good retailers, in my opinion. And we're also, we've developed a pretty substantial online business. We tripled it in the last 3 years, a pretty big transformation of the business model. So how do we apply that? How do we take some of these learnings and apply them at greater scale? That's what gets me excited.
Excellent. And you mentioned acquisitions. I mean, that comes with even more data. How do you, when you're growing at such a rate, how do you keep track of it all?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the interesting thing is, as I said before, we've got a stack that is pretty concurrent. You know, we've invested a lot and it's fully integrated. And when you acquire a company, you've got different choices that have been made over the years. And so one of the challenges that we have is how do we get at the data? Do we, you know, what's the sequence of events, right? And how much of the foundation do we build right away? How do we take advantage of some of the analytic capabilities? And the way I think about it is, even if you get 50% of the data and are able to make better decisions, you're that much better, right? So that's the work we're doing right now, trying to figure out what the sequencing of our integration plans are and how we can use the capabilities that we have with this new and exciting asset.
Excellent. And just to wrap up, we've been talking about AI, different regulations, everything that just came out this week in itself.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll help?
Do I think the regulations will help? Well, I think we as an industry have to align on, well, if we don't do it ourselves, then I think the government will do it for us. Let me say it this way. The way we think about, the way we use AI, the way we think about data privacy, I think compliance with the law is the lowest level of compliance. And so what we're trying to think is, what's the promise to our consumer? What are the principles that we believe as a company, and what does that mean in terms of how we think about regulating AI, how we use it in our own business, how we think about data privacy? So if you shoot for a higher standard, then the compliance side of it is relatively easier.
Perfect. Scott Roth, thank you so much from Tapestry. Thank you. One more round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.